Sometimes you just need to turn off the distractions, get to work, and find the universal truths that affect us all and that govern our universe. This is a good place to do that. Mark Foss and Kat Hobson will try to help with that a bit by bringing fantastic guests. Let's see what's happening tonight.
Hello, welcome to Universal Truths, brought to you by WBHM-DB in beautiful Birmingham, Alabama. This is your host, Mark Foss, and our co-host, Kat Hobson. And being a Southern gentleman, I'm going to let Kate introduce herself first. And tonight we have a guest that you're just going to flip over, Bill Foss, who is an expert in Akashic Library. And I'm so excited to get into this subject that I'll probably trip over myself a couple of times. And I wanted, before we start, I will tell you this is Mercury in retrograde. So if the aliens come down and do something to us, it's just normal. All right, so I'm going to be a Southern gentleman. I'm introducing Kate Hobson. Please introduce yourself, tell what you do, and how they can contact you.
Oh my goodness, that's a lot. I am Kat Hobson. I am the host not only of Universal Truths, but also of Fate Magazine Radio and Paranormal Experience with Kat Hobson. I am the owner of WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I am a Noetic Sciences researcher. I am co-founder of the American Noetic Science Research Studies, along with my partner, Frank Lee. I am a paranormal investigator. I have been featured on... I just lost my mind. But Portals to Hell. I have been featured... I hate that that's the name of that show, but that's it. And that was a lot of fun. I am always trying to find new ways to validate what is considered strange and unusual. And the Noetic Sciences, which is the study of the mind, is very interesting. So when I start putting out some results of some of the studies I'm doing, I will share those too. But I love what I do, and here I am getting to talk to Bill Foss, and sharing with Mark. I like doing that, Mark. Thanks. I'm glad we're doing this together.
Oh, thank you and for having me assist you in this. And since you like strange and unusual, I am strange and unusual. I, of course, Mark Foss. I live in Pensacola, Florida, and I am a psychic trance medium artist, and I work out of a store called Live and Let Live Metaphysical Store. It's owned by Sal Condafo, who is a voodoo priest, and he has an assistant who is also Matthew Ferguson, and so they're really good for assisting people with metaphysical issues. And there are myself and two other readers that read for people, Tony Talley and Terry O'Connor. We all three are basically in the same, we're all about 60, so we all have a mature way of dealing with people's issues and problems that come to us. And I work with some cold case issues, and I do readings, I do ghost hunting, I'm an author, I'm putting together an album, fast life songs, basically, is what they are. And I just am constantly doing art, doing anything I can get my hands on. And so, and I was just talking to Teal Gray, my mother, when she was naming me. I had another name they were going to choose, and she, of course, in the '60s, they had them on drugs when they came out, and she said, "Name him Mark Elliott. Damn it, leave me alone." And that she named me after a dead radio announcer. And so here I am, 60 years later, and I went, "Oh, I'm on the radio." So, who I am. Kat and I have a lot of fun.
We do.
Now, the person that we are bringing on tonight, kids, he's just a very nice guy, and he's full of so much information. And for the Akashic Library is a incredible human experience that really everyone can access. But it's something that has also in the modern era, I think it's really becoming much more known, because it used to be just something talked about through metaphysical groups or students of the occult, or any of that. So now it's known. People are interested in it. Now, at the store I work at, I do teach Akashic Library meditations. And through a very traumatic experience I had 30 years ago, being murdered, and getting back from that, the death experience is also kind of tied in with the Akashic, because it's the subconscious, and so many things happen while you're dying that it's an amazing material. And to be able to get someone who knows how to talk about it and how to access it is just a wonderful treat. And I hope that you all have a great time. And I'm going to welcome Bill Foss to our show. Thank you for coming tonight, Bill.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mark. And thank both of you for having me on the show. It's I'm sure we'll have a very interesting conversation. Look forward to sharing everything that we can bring through.
Oh, I think it's going to be wonderful. Now, I want you to explain who you are and what you do. Now, he's got a long resume here. So he's got wonderful things to share. So you tell us who you are, how we can find you.
Okay. I'll see if I can bullet point it here without taking too much time.
Okay.
Well, basically, I've been studying the Akashic Records for the past 25 years, and I've written several books on the Akashic Records, none of which were planned. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that story, which is very interesting. But I'm an Akashic Records author, teacher, speaker, healer, and I work with multiple different modalities, some of which are known and some which are channeled directly from the records. So some of these modalities are ancient. Some are from the future, which is very interesting. And I've really just have been, over the past 25 years, going from one adventure to the next, as they chose me to start doing this work. And I've taught in Europe, I've taught in Mexico, across the U.S. I continue to work, and I'm hoping to get back overseas again as soon as the pandemic or did I say that out loud? The scamdemic. Oh, there I went again. The COVID-19 scenario. Let's call it that.
Yeah.
The COVID-19 scenario. And so when that lets up, I look forward to getting back. And until then, I'm available online. I have 3 interviews with George Newry that's available on Gaia TV. And so you can do a search for me on Beyond Belief, and you can get 3 different interviews, much like tonight, but I know tonight's going to be much different than every time we do something. It's just different. And I love that. But the books are also available.
Right?
Right. The books are also available on the website, and you can go to billfoss.net and you can read through the books. I'm all about sharing information and teaching. That's my main thing. So everything that I do, every book, someone says, well, what reading should I get? What healing should I get? What book should I read? I'll say, well, I'll be happy to recommend that to you, and let's dive in somewhere. But anything you get is that I'm involved with is going to be, it's going to be involved in a lot of information coming through, because I'm all about sharing information and experiential information for people to get their hands on and start having an experience that really can move them forward and open them in a way that they get inspired about life. And they wake up and say, oh, here I am. Here I am. Wow. Okay, let's move forward from this moment and see if we can keep the vibration up and keep going. And let's see if we can light those matches in a dark place. Let's see if we can continue to light up those souls. Each and every person that has an aha moment, and then another, and and says, I think I'm moving forward. I think I'm onto something here. I'm different, and I'm not sure what's different, but I just know that I am. And so that's when we know that we're moving forward, and that's what my work is all about. So it's based around the Akashic Records, and yet I tie in also 20 years of Kriya Yoga experience, meditation, many different meditation modalities, mudras, mantras, a lot of Eastern technique and tradition, and modalities that come through from, and traditions that come through from Atlantis, insights that come through from Atlantis, as well as Egypt and other places around the globe. So it's been a little bit interesting, to say the least, for the last 25 years, and it keeps developing and keeps moving forward. So I'm just very thankful to be doing the work.
And it's good to have people like you doing it. And I think people are really receptive. I've been doing this like 41 years, being in metaphysics. And
interesting.
20 years ago, people wanted to do things, but they didn't want to do the work. Yeah, they just wanted to snap their fingers and say, I do this. And now I see young people wanting to meditate, wanting to go to stretch the muscles and learn how to do these things. And they're ready for people like you. They're ready for someone to say, let's do this. And I can tell by the way you talk that you make it simple for them to understand. Because in my day, when it was still the occult before it became New Age, they would make everything sound like stereo instructions. And so that, so like I would know, but you wouldn't know what I'm going to tell you, So I can tell that, they've chosen you for a good reason. And
thank you.
Very excited because, like I said, I teach the Akashic at the little store I work in. And They're just, people are really into it. And, but like I said, they come in, they're, you know, I think people have been like having ADHD or something. And it was hard to get anyone to focus. And now I see them coming in, sitting down, and learning and practicing it. So we're at a good window. The window is open for a while. It'll close again. You know, it opens, it closes. And this is a time frame for people to learn. And this is all stuff that the most important way to start is with yourself, because you have so much information in your brain. And so I'm really going to let you talk, you know, here as we go along. But I want people to know that it's very rare to get people who are teachers who are gracious and can speak well and know what they're doing. And also know that if you don't understand it, you're not going to get it. So I can tell that you've got that going for you. So I was going to start talking. Did you just start? Tell the difference between personal Akashic and universal Akashic, so that people kind of understand what is the Akashic.
Sure, absolutely, Mark. There are two different levels. Whether it's multidimensional. Okay, first off, and if I seem like I'm losing someone, maybe they'll write in, they'll connect with you by email or phone, and you'll be able to clarify some of these things. And I know that I will be available as well by email. If someone has a question and they want to, they say, well, what do you mean? I mean, there's something there, but I'm just not sure what you're talking about. And there's so much to it, and we have a limited time to share here. So I'll try to be as direct and clear as possible with it. There are two main levels of the Akashic Records. That first off, when people find out, much like I did when I started, and I had been studying everything. I mean, I was just soaking it up like a sponge, and I was just going, and I thought, you know, I started my actual spiritual journey lifetimes ago, eons ago, and yet I woke up in this life was in my early 30s, and I felt like I was late waking up. I thought, like, oh geez, it's taken me so long to just like to wake up at this point. And I got into yoga and energy techniques, and I was studying everything I could find, and the Ascended Masters were very, very important to me, and I couldn't understand why. And but I just knew that it was real and it was important. And when I found the Akashic Records, I mean, my lights went off when I found that, and I went, wait, you mean that there's a library in the higher dimensions that we're all connected into that has every thought, word, and deed of every person, place, and thing, all things animate and inanimate, from every moment, in body and between lives, and all of our lifetimes. And I became lit up. I was so excited, and I started to go. I just jumped. I dived into it. I said, "This is it." The interesting thing was, again, I felt like I was late at it, but there's not really, as you know, you had to really look deep to find anything on the Akashic Records that had a depth of knowledge or value to it.
Yeah.
So, in that, it is a real place from ancient times that's connected to all souls. So when we start talking about it, let's say if we're talking about it, and I'm getting to your question. we start talking about it second and third person, there's a vibration to it, and people go, "What is that?" Or they say, and it comes up a lot in spirituality and things of that. It comes up in a lot of other spiritual studies. They refer to it heavily.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot of a large depth of scope of knowledge out there on it to find. Now, Edgar Cayce had brought through case studies of basically medical intuitive, and then went into the life of Christ through channelings and Times of Atlantis, and put those both in book form. But primarily was used, yes. Oh, no problem.
We're going to have to stop for a quick break. We'll just remember that we were with Casey and pick this right back up if that's okay. And y'all come back too.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama. Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting. You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
We are confident that none of our hosts are possessed. Being repossessed a few times, that might be a different story. You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to Universal Truths. Mark, go ahead. I was stepping on you.
No, you weren't. Thank you for coming back. But we're back. Let's talk about Edgar Cayce. Sorry.
Okay. Well,
Mr. Bill.
Yes, sir. The reference to Cayce was that he was the contemporary Akashic Records person earlier in the 1900s that came up with. He termed that the Akashic Records. He termed that. Now, before that, it was known across the globe, all the way from ancient civilizations, as the Akasha. And the word Akasha meant sky library. And it translated in many of the ancient texts, and it is in many of the ancient texts. It's in ancient Hindu. There's a deep depth of knowledge with the Akashic Records in ancient Hindu, even in the tantric practices. that goes back centuries and centuries. Ancient Egypt, we know, and we'll go into that more in depth. Ancient Tibet, the Far East, the Middle East, even ancient Celtic, medieval times in Europe, Scandinavia, all of these places in the world, the mystical groups that met, they all found their ways into the records. Now, some people may have found their way into the records uniquely by a similar experience that you were sharing earlier, Mark, which is a near-death experience.
Yeah.
And so all of these different cultures around the world have found this, and they've practiced, much like standing out. You know, if you could imagine the ancient peoples, and they're standing out on a plain, on the event horizon, just standing out in the middle of the desert and looking up at the star Sirius or looking up at the Pleiades and saying, I wonder what's up there. I wonder, did I come from the stars? I wonder if I'm going to the stars.
Can I interrupt with a question,
And just expanding their fields out. Absolutely.
When you say that people feel like the connection to various heavenly bodies, you know, Sirius, Orion, Pleiades, whatever their draw is, when that happens, is that indicative of maybe just missing being there? That you're being acknowledgement, you're getting acknowledgement that that's part of you?
Absolutely. So many of us are from different places. I mean, we all did. The earth itself didn't grow souls that came and joined with human form. They came from God. They came from the great central sun. They came from first moment across the stars, incarnating in different star civilizations, sort of like Battlestar Galactica, you know, where they're traveling through the stars, you know, to find their next home. And that's what we do. We migrate alone, and we migrate in groups to different star systems. We're all originally from God. Now,
yes,
some souls are of the earth, but fewer are of the earth, and they're different than what I would call a celestial soul. But yes, you're right on there, and part of it is a yearning, and
yes,
sometimes, which is happening simultaneously in the quantum realities in the mind of God, but also sometimes we have guides that are from these places, and the guides are just that. They are spiritual guides and advisors. But on the fourth and the fifth dimensional plane, with our soul energy and our fields, if they're with us for long periods of time in our life, they're sort of like part of us. So, and you can see this as they come through different people. You'll say, oh, well, that person is definitely Pleiadian, or that person has a Pleiadian guide, or that person has, I know with the Arcturians, I see that a lot. You know, I can say that person definitely has Arcturian guides. Look at the way they're buzzing around. I mean, I can feel that buzzy Arcturian energy coming through them, and they're like, no, I'm the healer. I know how to do it. Get out of my way. And I'm like, oh, you little Arcturian, you. So I wanted to jump back for just a moment so I don't make sure we get lost down the rabbit hole and answer Mark's first question in respect. And that was, he asked if there were different levels of the Akasha. And I want to say that the two main levels of the Akashic that I teach people about in the workshop are going to be, number one, the whole library itself as a true place. And then in that library, a person's personal book of life. And that personal book of life that you are connected into. So, and there's an upload download stream for each of us. Now the download stream is more silent for most of us. It's asleep to us, but the upload stream is continual. We're writing in that book. We're writing every thought, word, and deed, so it's documented. And when I work with people in workshops and we go in, I'll describe the whole shooting match. We'll lay everything out. We'll take plenty of time and we'll go through the dynamics and talk about it. And people say, "Wow, that's huge." Once we have a 360-degree view of this perspective, dynamically of this place, this modality, this ancient mystical system of divination in three different perspectives, then I'll say, now let's focus on your book of life, because if you're connected to your own book of life and you're accessing your own book of life continually and vividly, you're going to have more information in there that does cycle back through history and even into different star systems and whatnot. You're going to have more information in just your book of life than you could possibly digest in this lifetime. So if you get into your own book of life and you stay with that and let that be your focus, because that's the energy that's going to continually come down as you're going into it. It's coming down into you. Your soul field starts to expand. It starts to expand. It starts to the record, the Akashic record stream of energy starts to connect through your soul, and your soul steps into your body and merges with your mind field, your DNA, and everything else. And you start to change in ways that are even behind the scenes that you can't really, people say, I don't know why, but I just feel different now, But so back to this book of life. This book of life is that this is really the thing to focus on. A lot of people, they say, wow, this is amazing. Let's go up. Now, let's look at the aliens. Now, let's look who shot JFK. Let's look at different things in history, all of this stuff. And it's all there. But the important thing is to focus, not to get lost in it, because there's more information there than you could ever hope to. The interesting thing is, again, another near-death comment. When you go to the other side, when we all go to the other side, we know a lot of that information as second nature. We'll know a lot of that information as second nature. So focusing on your personal book of life gives you the situations and the experiences that you've been through before in past life that echo back through your life in a different way in this lifetime. And when you get that you're doing the same thing only different, then you get an element of the Akashic records that you can't get anywhere else. It's experiential, It's symbolic, and it's what's the right word I'm looking for? It's literal. So there are literal translations and there are symbolic translations as you do different things differently in this lifetime that you've been through before. And when we get it and we solve one of those things, and then it's amazing. Our response patterns are why we're here, to solve old response patterns and to create new response patterns that the soul says, oh, I get to observe different things. I get to learn because the soul is part of God and it's having an experience and it's written in the records. And then when we go up between lives, they say, well, you really responded to that well. You reacted right in, you dealt with it. And, we may not, here in physical reality, we might not think, well, gee whiz, I didn't handle that very well. And that might not be it at all. They might be the keepers of the records and your guides and the angels that are working with you on that level might say, you did exactly what you were supposed to. You expanded yourself. You became emotionally involved. You took action. So it's not always what we think it is. Sometimes it's literal, and sometimes it's symbolic, and there are different patterns and layers of response patterns and lessons that we look at. So those are the two main levels, as you were asking, Mark. And it's funny, my guys, and they're responding to me in a different way than usual because you're involved with this this evening. So very, very interesting.
Oh, I think it's very interesting. I mean, it's you've got a voice I could just listen to for hours and hours.
I know, right?
I mean,
just suck it all up.
Well, it was fine. Well, the thing with the near-death experience and the Akashic, when I'd done the Akashic, a group of people I'd been with had taken me through it was almost like an American Indian version of it, how to get to it. Mm-hmm. We had a little rope. They had a little rope. You had a 6-foot piece of rope. You had a knot on each end. You put one knot in between your big toe and held that rope and used it like the reins of a horse. And when they put us through the Akashic Library meditation, if you wanted to go faster to look at everything, you put the foot down like you're pushing the gas, and then you would pull up on the cord if you wanted to slow down or stop. And so my first experience with it was fabulous, but it was a very different avenue to get to it. Mm-hmm. And I was always fascinated with it. But when I was dying, when I'd been attacked, it was just a random act of violence. I just wanted to kill somebody. And but when I started to download, because you have a basically a physical mechanism in your body. Everything has a basis in some sort of physical aspect. And I started doing the lights, the people, the calling, and you start to see all these lights, and you start to recognize who these people are calling you. And if you go to them, then you're dead. You just leave your body and go. And after I went through this wonderful, wonderful experience, as I had two wonderful death experiences. They were, near death. And I came back out of them, and some of it I didn't understand until I started drawing it down. Then I started realizing what I was looking at were neurons, and looking at the neurons on a cellular level. And so in the tunnel that I started, the neurons try to get all the information downloaded and then uploaded before you die. So when you're dying, you see all these lights, you see the layers of plasma that the brain records 3 million hours worth of information. So it all kind of downloads. We're like the internet and the computer is like based on us. And it downloads very quickly. And then when you start to upload into the tunnel, what I found for me, just from my perspective, I felt like that because it was a dendrite, which is around the neuron. So you upload to this incredibly huge neuron pattern, and all the information you had with you, it gets absorbed into the flesh of that, the tunnels and everything going up the dendrites. And your soul goes where it needs to go. Your spirit that's created your information is basically your brain is your book, because your brain is recording every single second that you've taken a breath. And when it downloads, then that goes up and they've got your information. So everything is accessible in the universe somewhere. Something, even murders, mysteries. If somebody was involved with it, that information is out there. And you can use the Akashic to access that and to do other things. But it's like the death experience when I came back from it. I was just, it was so beautiful. And it was the first time you get this incredible feeling of love and excitement. Like, like you're coming back from a journey. You were, like you were here to play baseball, and now you're going back, to wherever you need to go. And it's just an amazing thing. But the Akashic is so ancient and so mixed. And when people say things like aliens, think about it as alien to us. Those people are travelers. They're from somewhere else. We're about to do the same thing that we call aliens. We're going to go terraform Mars and do exactly what the ancient people did. Terraform it. They're talking about nuking the poles on it to heat it up and get the water coming to the surface, and shifting the poles, and that's all. That kind of story is very familiar to the Sumerian record.
Ancient Earth.
Yeah, they were doing the same thing we're doing. They just were a little bit more technologically advanced, but we have their conscience. We can connect to those people, and they connect to us, and they have mixed with us. So a lot of us are, we all have a little bit of star in it, and star people. But I know it's about time for the great cat. So just holler at me and tell me when we gotta go.
It is time.
Okay. We'll be back.
We will. And we're going to have even more of this great discussion, so y'all don't want to miss that. Y'all come back too.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama. Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting. You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
We are confident that none of our hosts are possessed. Being repossessed a few times? That might be a different story. You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to Universal Truths. I'm Kat Hobson, one of your hosts with my co-host Mark Foss. And we are so fortunate tonight to be able to interview Bill Foss, who is, he's just actually a whole lot of great stuff. He is a visionary artist. He is an Akashic Records student as well as educator. He's actually brilliant. He does readings. He does healings. He has added quantum healing to his repertoire. And we've been discussing the Akashic Records. And while Mark has a strong background in accessing his, I am just learning to do that. And I learned about it about 5 years ago. Someone had written me on Facebook when I started Paranormal Experienced that they would be glad to train me for about $800. And I didn't have $800 at that time, so I figured I'd just hang out and see what I could learn. And I do know that there is some background. And Bill is never alone, because I've tried to pull that down and get rid of it, Bill. And you just are never alone. So,
you mean you're listening? You can hear the others talking too.
I can hear the others talking. So.
Okay.
And they talk very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like they're in a whole different zone.
They're Quicksilver.
Yes. Yes, they are. But I would like to learn more about soul contracts, because I hear so much about them, and that they're a choice that is consciously made before we come back. And how would you explain that, and how would you describe it best for our listeners?
It's funny when, sometimes we a lot of us out there have had readings, and we'll go to a reader and they'll say, "Don't you forget, you signed up for this."
I was told that. That's what made me aware of them in the first place.
And you want to hit somebody on the head with a book when they say that. Sometimes you're like,
yes.
Really? Oh.
That was my reaction.
Well, Mark, on break we were talking about, and Mark was sharing a little bit about the other side again. Mm-hmm. And I really enjoy hearing about that, because it is I spend so much time up there. And it's sort of like my living room. Mm-hmm. The soul contracts are, if you can imagine being okay. So if we're transitioning out of human form, and the veils become thin, and the veils move back, and our soul expands, and we start to look into infinity and eternity and we see the light, and we see the portal. And in that moment that goes on for what seems like an eternity, because we're then in the eternal now, and we're stepping into the eternal now. And some of our missed opportunities, some of our greatest triumphs as the ego, through the emotional body and the mental body, travel intact with the astral body and enjoined to the soul. So it is you as you, in every sense of the word, having the experience and moving up through the light. We get upstairs, so to speak. We get upstairs, and you have to remember we're in yin energy that goes on endlessly and timelessly. So while it's high vibration and it's all love, it's also very floaty, and it goes on forever. So there's one aspect of souls, and this is sort of kind of a practical human perspective in many ways. There are many souls that say, I just want to get back in the game. I want to get back into human form. I know I can do it different. It's when we're up there and we're in all of this love and we feel great, we say, I'll take that. I can do that contract, no problem. Because we are whole, we are God, we feel our God source, we feel our God self, and we know when we're up there that even when we're down here and we're enjoined in physical form, that we are reflections of God in human form. We know that when we're up there, and so we commit ourselves to certain things. And they say, well, we'd like to give you this, because if you can do this and this, and you've already done these other parts in other lives or earlier in life, if you can do these parts and go back and complete this, look what's ahead for you. And we say, I got this. I can do that. Let's go. Let me back in the game. And so in all of our energy and our fullness, we commit to, through a time and a place, transporting back down into human form and having our memory wiped. And they tell us, you're going to have your memory wiped. And we say, we know. But we'll be fine, and when we're up there, we know that we'll be back in a few minutes. But when we come down here, time is different.
Yes.
And it goes on. It goes on for a long period of time. When our ancestors or our family members or our loved ones transition to the other side, oftentimes they're with us for what seems like months or years, and it's a blink for them. When they get up there, they look down and they say, I'm not worried, they'll be right here in just a minute. And I find that very interesting. So that has to do with the soul contracts. Now, another aspect of the soul contracts is we can say cause and effect. Cause and effect. Many cause and effects were based around karma, cause and effect. Many are transmutable. Small karmas are transmutable through other acts, and we do that all of the time. The large contracts are things that we signed up for, such as, this is who you are, that your soul was forged in the light of a star by God or the Elohim for the purpose of such and such as for the for the sake of being a leader, a great leader, or for the sake of being a healer, or for the sake of bearing a certain family lineage. and governing over and taking care of a whole family tree, a race of people, or something like that. So this is a thing that, and I'm giving a large example there, but that would be a soul contract that you can't get out of. I mean, because it's part of who you are. It's part of why you were created. But a lot of the stuff that we think is sinister, as far as what shows up as maybe a soul contract that people are trying to get out of, it's like, I got to get I need a session. Can we get a soul contract clearing on that? Can we rewrite this? And a lot of this can be transmuted through spiritual practice, diet, perception, gratitude, forgiveness, huge forgiveness, perception, and yoga, and and it's like you put one step in front of the other on the earth plane, and you just wait a minute and do the work, and wait a minute and do the work, and before you know it, you've got a few months or a couple years behind you of shifting.
Right.
And that soul contract starts to disintegrate, because oftentimes when somebody is giving a psychic reading, if they're tapping into that person directly in their fields through the astral, they're often giving messages based on where that person is at that time in their life and how they will project forward as that person they are now. And this is where a lot of gloom and doom messages could come through.
Yeah.
So the important thing is to just start working spiritually, and anything that you see is transmutable. If you see something in the records, whether it's set up for you as a response or if it's part of a soul contract, you can ask them. You can ask for new guides to come in. You can ask to shift guides.
Really?
You can ask for...
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, you can. And sometimes guides can be compromised, or sometimes they just hold us in old patterns when we're trying to move into new areas, and sometimes they need help. Sometimes they need guides to come in and work with them.
Yeah.
While they're working with us, and so others come in to hold space. But the soul contracts shouldn't be looked at as something that's sinister, much like the word karma, which raises the hair on the back of most people's necks. When they hear the word karma, and they're like, "Oh, I don't," but karma can be good, but it is a connection through cause and effect. And the thing with karma, in perspective to soul contracts, karma, it is true, good does outweigh the bad. Good does energetically, emotionally, good versus evil. Oftentimes the light is always going to outweigh the shadow or the dark side.
Well, that would be only right?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. So
love and light is so powerful.
Right, and everything is using the creativity of the pure consciousness of the light as it shines out from creation, and it shines down through the Akashic Records of each and every planetary system. And it services the souls who are moving down to their plane of existence, into reality, and up into the records in their own part of the universe, in the way that it works for them. So we have a very unique system here because the Earth is such a beautiful place, and yet it's in the lower dimensions. It's in third dimension, but it is beautiful. And so we have these deep tangent and emotional experiences that are compressed with a lot of emotion and a lot of thought. It's amplified and compressed with a lot of emotion and a lot of thought in a short time. And that is the learning, the experiences. This is the Earth School. And our chakra system and our body, everything about our makeup, our genetic makeup, and our chakra system, our nervous system, our brilliant mind that Mark was sharing about earlier, all of these parts of us are set up for ascension. We were designed, the human race was designed for ascension. So ascension, the ascended masters, the Akashic Records, and the soul are all important elements of who and why we're here. The ascended masters represent those who have achieved and gone before us, and they're the evolving class, the graduating or the evolving class that has moved up into. They have taken their personality and their personality with the soul and gotten off of the wheel of reincarnation that we are experiencing here and moved up, and now they're looking back and helping others do the same thing. And that's really what my work is about. So it's about helping people to, as you understand the records and you get into the dynamics of the soul and you start working with the soul records and the soul contracts, as you were mentioning earlier,
right,
and the karmas and the healing and the cause and effect and every thought, word, and deed, and the life starts changing. And then if we can, with all of that naturally, without even knowing of the records, if we're working on that stuff, we're going to have a great experience as we go back up. And then if we find out about the records, the Akashic Records, while we're in human form, and we start practicing and we start working with it in the middle of our life, we're ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
And the masters, the teachers, and the angels that are trying to wake people up right and left, they're like, "Oh, thank you. You're ahead of the curve. Now we can do even more. We can. It's not like it's not. It's not a hack or anything like that of moving forward. It's a true level of being a more fully knowing being, a more fully sentient knowing being, and being awake to the rest of the realities, the dimensions in the universe in the truest sense of the word. And when we get that, then we're in the place that we looked at these masters through time, and we now can experience some of the things that they were experiencing.
Yeah.
A fullness of consciousness, and then the chakra shift and the DNA shifts and manifesting shifts, and things, a person's life just completely changes because their perspective changes, and then they tap into the records, and oh my gosh, the things that you can do. So we're amazing, brilliant beings, and we were created to be able to artistically and creatively take advantage of that. And it's been asleep to us throughout the ages. Number one, nobody really wanted to do the work. And number two, those who didn't want to do the work wanted to point the finger and accuse people of huddling together behind closed doors and doing mystical practices.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's that's part of the primitive side of humanity. You know, trying to get into that place of higher consciousness.
Yeah, it's a threat to organized people, because if they find out that you have all of this, you have the connection to the spirit, you have connection to your God source. You don't need a mediator. You don't need someone to tell you how bad you are. That you have that, that's a direct threat to a lot of belief systems.
Well, I have a question about this. I am actually growing through this process, and it is not easy all the time.
No.
And I feel sometimes overwhelmed, and sometimes I'm like, what in the world was I thinking? And that was before I even knew there were soul contracts. I'm like, why on earth am I here? This is crazy. But, I'm just always fascinated, because I have pretty much lived my life. And I do know that we've missed that news break, but you are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. And thanks for that. But I think that one of the best things that has happened to me was that someone who was supposed to be an expert on karma and was a teacher of karma, had written books on karma, had done other things also, did something that was incredibly bad for her karma. And I didn't know it. Because I wasn't studying it diligently at that time. But I just knew that what she did was unkind and pretty close to cruel and non-factual. So somebody who does know a lot more about that than I do, who saw it happen, said, oh, that's not true. That's not you. I said, well, I know that's not me. And she said, for her to be trying to teach and preach karma, that's a very bad thing that she did for her. And, I've just tried to understand the
do you mean her? Do you mean her as you in a past life?
No, I mean recently with another human who was living.
Oh, I see. No, okay.
I am positive that I've done bonehead things in a past life, but I was, like I said, I was exposed to this rather late. I think I was like 53, 55. And so I've been studying. I actually met a priest, a Buddhist priest, who actually studied in the same monastery as the Dalai Lama. He was from that same school, and he was over here, and I think now he's teaching Eastern Studies. But he is who looked at me when we met, and he was like, you really need to build on who you are. And I didn't even know what that meant. So I had a lot of things happen within a very short time frame that pushed me into this study. And I think it's because I wasn't living purposefully, or I was living, and I always have done my best to be a good person and help whoever needs it, especially children. But it wasn't the way it is now. And I just find that fascinating, because you can feel led to something and not know what it is that you're being led to, and people are put in your path that are like signposts.
Sure.
Yes.
Are they people that are part of your soul tribe who are there to be a guidepost?
They can be soulmates, as we know. Soulmates, as in partners. Let's talk like a male-female relationship or a love relationship. A lover often is a representation of a deep karmic connection from a past life. So we often had these. We come together with a lover, and there's just it's so magnetic. It's like the opposite ends of magnets that are pushing away from each other, and yet they're drawing us together at the same time, and we cannot get out of it if we had to. We don't know why, but we feel.
Are you talking about twin flames?
Yearning. Well, that could be, but that's a whole other subject. But so all soulmates are not twin flames. Twin plates are also soulmates, but not all soulmates are twin flames.
Well, soulmates can be just friends, right?
Right. So a soulmate, so the reason why I brought up in that way is because there's a deep karma there. There's a deep emotional karma that happens, and it opens each person. Now, the interesting thing about karma is you're talking about it, and there's a whole chapter that's channeled on karma in Journey to the Akashic Records, and I was speaking from the records through this, and I realized as I was working with karma and the law of karma and the study of karma from the records, that as an empathic person, and most of us who are studying spiritually are opened at a higher empathic level, right? Mm-hmm. So we feel and we sense energy. It is possible for two people to have karma with each other, yes, through an experience, yes. It is also possible for one person to have karma with the other, and the other person not to have karma with the other person, and yet it will still feel as though you do have karma with the other person because you're in the situation of it, and you're experiencing the same emotional turbulence that they are. And it takes some deep reflection and introspection to be able to step out of that and step aside from it and say, okay, I get it. That's not mine. It's tricky, but it can be done. And so, and that's not to be confused with denial. That's not to be consistent, so it would be very, very easy for us, right? It would be very convenient for us to say, well, that's not mine,
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are a lot of people that do that, and there are a lot of genuine people that would, say, oh my gosh, if I could only be that disconnected in difficult situations, and yet you would want to know for sure that what was going on. And this is the level of depth that I get from you with your study on karma. So, and that's why I felt interesting about bringing that up is it is possible that sometimes the other person has karma with you and you not with them, but it feels like the karma is equal between the two people. So Spirit or the universe or God has set up a situation, and both people will experience their own level of truth and lessons and situational experiences and responses from that. But it's very interesting when you get that piece of it, when you feel that and you step into it and practice that piece of it. Let me know how that goes, because it's very unique. That's a unique part of karma that most people think it's just a ball and chain and everybody has to do it.
Yeah.
It's this and this and that's it. There you go.
Well, that's why we have free will, though, right?
Right. Right. So you can step out of that. And when you do, if you're going through a deep situation where you finally get that, I don't know why I'm getting that. I'm just getting that that's not mine.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it. Well, you're transforming and you're transforming parts of your perception and your different levels of your extrasensory perception. Because you're getting messages. You're getting extrasensory perception messages that are even through an overly empathic, uncomfortable, emotional karmic experience, that extrasensory perception is able to cut through that and see it for what it is and say, no, that's I don't know why, but I just know that that's not mine.
Yeah.
And I'm going to honor the connection and the communication, whatever has to happen here. But so it will take some of the uncomfortability out of it. And this is a part of self-knowing. This is a part of self-knowing and self-development that helps to, move a person forward on the earth plane. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting and unique.
Well, that's me. I kid.
But you can do it. You can do it.
Well,
you can be it.
Well, I already work on that.
Yeah,
But
that's great.
It just feels kind of like the Nike ad, right? Just do it. And
Mm-hmm.
so
And that's actually
yeah.
what you have to do. You have to feel like a little football, You're going through the game of life.
Well, as long as I don't have to do too many field goals, I'll be okay. I don't like getting kicked in the butt. But
yeah. But that's part of it.
It is part of it, because sometimes I do want to ask you, Bill, as much of an ascended being as you are, as much knowledge as you have and have striven for so long, do you have bonehead moments?
Of course.
Are they epic?
Of course. I mean, beyond epic. Epic is an understatement. I mean, we all have that. And yet, the more that you do the work over time, it gets easier. So it's like you can experience it, that you can experience the bonehead moment and be in the world and not of it.
Yes, that's what I strive for.
So that's the challenge. So another example of that is, so Jesus was like teaching, he was channeling God. Now, he was studying with mystics across the Middle East and the Far East and the Mediterranean, and he had learned many different techniques that he used, and he started healing and teaching, and then he went deeper and he went deeper, and then he started channeling the Godhead. He started channeling, and God started coming through and talking, and yet he goes into the temple with a whip and a chair, and he starts like breaking things and running people out, So he got angry. He got violent.
Yes.
And he
People
didn't
forget
apologize
that side
for
of
that.
him.
Yeah, he didn't apologize for that. It's okay to get angry when you get to a place where you're more expanded. It's okay to get angry because it's an emotional expression that needs to happen in the moment through the physical expression, but it's the holding on to, So if he would have come out of that, he would have went, I just can't let that go. Those damn farmers were in there. They were selling sheep right in the middle of the temple.
Yes.
You know, they had chickens, they had sheep, they were selling garments and this and that. Oh my God, I got to go tell the disciples. But I got to tell Mary, we got to have a town meeting about this. I'm going to put it in my next sermon. I'm telling you, I am just really twisted up about this. And just went on and on and on about it and couldn't let it go. And then he went to bed and he couldn't go to sleep because he couldn't let it go. And then he woke up the next morning and he had it going through he woke up and he was like, oh yeah, I remember. I was so super smoking pissed. Yeah. Because those people were in, you know, and he just went, if somebody were to go on and on like that, and I've been there, if you go on and on with an anger that you can't let go around somebody or something on that level, then that's what we're talking about.
Well, we have to take a break. I am so sorry, but we'll be right back after this.
Warning, the following message does not necessarily reflect the views of WBHM-DB or its hosts, guests, listeners, or of any functioning adult in general. In fact, Frank should probably seek professional help. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi there, Frank Lee here. I thought that I would spend a few moments telling you about the positivity from the network here. The overall message of para-unity and happiness, and how everyone here wants to get along with everyone out there, and how everything is just wonderful. Wait, Cat's not looking. Okay, I've got something to really tell you. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what's really going on. Honestly, all that being nice and positive crap was kind of hurting my soul, as dark as it is. So, what's really happening? You see it all the time. Everybody and their brother out there has a paranormal team because they watch a couple of episodes of Ghost Hunters or some crap like that. So they go and they spend half their mortgage payment on tools and things that light up that they don't understand. And then the next logical step after buying matching black t-shirts and posing like 90s rappers for their Facebook page is to, of course, have their own podcast. Well, you know what? You're not going to find that crap here. What we have here at WBHM Digital Broadcasting is the best host, the best guest, bringing you real information. All of the hosts here on this network know their stuff. They are the people who have been out there doing the work, doing actual research. And no, by research, I don't mean binge watching some kind of cheesy TV show on Netflix. I mean reading books. I mean out in the field doing the legwork. And who are they interviewing on their shows? They're bringing you the people they have learned from. They're bringing you the best in the field, covering all kinds of topics from UFOs and aliens to Bigfoot to cryptozoology to ghosts to anything you can think of a bit strange and unexplained. It is here, and you're going to get the best information here. So stay tuned to WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Don't go anywhere. Speaking of going somewhere, I've got to go before my mic gets cut. We'll see you there on WBHM-DB.
Welcome to Universal Truth at WBHM-DB in Birmingham. This is Mark Fultz and Kate Hobson. And we are talking to the fabulous Bill Foss. And I was going to interject a little bit of a redneck version of the spiritual experience. Because when I was 3 and 4, I could remember where I came from. And I would tell my mother about where I was coming from before I was born. And being a little Baptist, that was not, they didn't look on that very kindly. But I remember being a little ball of light with a big ball of light saying, you're going to have a happy time. You're going to be happy. And the life, and then it's like you take that little light, and it's like dressing stuffed into a turkey. You're stuffed into this little meat pie that has made out of minerals. You're a little light in a foreign little creature, and you have to go through this life, go through all these horrible experiences and wonderful experiences, but you have to remember yourself. And because when I came into this life, I was given to a family who really did not want me, and it was just a horrific childhood. It was a terrible childhood. But after it, once I evolved and once I became who I am, it was the reason I went through that experience. I wasn't supposed to be like them. And I had to hold on to who I was and what I thought, even though they thought everything I thought was wrong for them. And then eventually evolving to become, to remember that, I'm a soul having a human experience. And the consciousness is so hungry for information that whatever happens in your life, even the poor little person you see on the side of the street person, you see the person who has a horrible life, they want that information. So every life needs something. And go ahead.
Oh, Mark, that's so interesting what you're touching on there. That's, when we're giving readings to people, and when we're giving readings to people and they say, well, that's coming, you see that coming for me, how am I ever going to get through that? Or some, let's say somebody gives a reading and they say, well, you've got this and this coming, and that all of a sudden that person tenses up, and because our consciousness, even if we have a premonition of something coming and we think, how am I going to get through that? As soon as you're there, your consciousness is experiencing it, you're in the moment, and you're doing it.
Yes.
And I just wanted to throw that in as you were, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, no. What I was about to take you into now, because you just brought that up about readings and things like that.
Okay.
Because it leads right into it smoothly. Because we are this little light shoved into a little meat pie. We have our experience, and if we overcome the human experience and remember who we are, and then we've kind of done it. If you don't overcome it, that's where people go, oh, I have to try this again. Or I have to, so if you can figure out what your journey is, what you have to do, finish it, do it. Anything else is gravy. But you kind of have to live a little ahead of yourself. You have to make sure you get everything accomplished that you want to get accomplished. Because it's there for you to do. And we're taught in this life to be afraid, to be ourselves, to be individual, to that we're not good, that there's some big God with a fickle finger of fate going, well, no matter how good you are, you're not good enough.
Yes.
And that's not my experience with the consciousness. My experience with the consciousness is like, everybody has this incredible light. And if we could just realize it. But coming into this, see, like I am a psychic, I'm a medium. You're a psychic. You're a medium. I know Kate is.
Yeah.
Uh,
Not a medium.
what? Well, I'm really a large. I'm an extra large right now. But
Hey, you're stealing my line. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah. Well, I call myself the fat psychic because I am. I weigh 100 pounds more than what I used to. I look like I swallowed my older self. Now, for the human experience, the spirit experience for us, I feel like as psychics, I think true people who really have the gift, because everybody has it to a point. But the difference between being a psychic, a medium, a channeler, and what I think what we're here for, and why do we have those abilities? And I think, I feel like we're spokespeople for the other side. And, but I'd like for you to explain to the people who don't know exactly when we say like psychic or medium or channeler.
Yes.
What that means to you, because I think you'll be able to explain that today.
So we, as you said, we all are psychic and we have a certain level of it. Yes, it's all part of our unique gifts that we haven't tapped into or have been part of in other ages that will be coming back online through the great unity that's coming. And that's another level of it that we have to look forward to. As you're talking, the first thing that they're bringing through for me to share was that when I found out about the Akashic Records, I said, wow, what is this? I have to know what this is. And I dove right into it. I said, this is so exciting. And I never thought, hey, I should use the Akashic Records to help other people, or I should be an author, or I never even thought that. I was completely dumbfounded creatively by the whole concept of it. And I wanted to go into it. And I've had a reading from time to time, and it would be a local reading at a coffee shop or something, and they would tell me things, and I would say, yeah, but I already knew that. So they were tapping into, they were playing hide and seek with me, which we do psychically, which can happen. But for the people who are listening that are wondering about their own intuitive abilities and gifts, whether it's working with psychic phenomenon, clairvoyance, clairaudience, mediumship, accessing the Akashic Records. When I started, I thought, well, it crossed my mind. I thought, well, maybe I should learn to read for others. And I thought, well, what do I have to share? What do I have to share? And I thought, nothing. I thought that's not my strong suit. I shouldn't be doing that, And yet, when I tuned in and I talked to someone without questioning where it was coming from, someone would become so emotional and say, how can you know that about my life? How can you know those deep details about my life? So as I was experiencing that and not understanding how I was able to bring that through, I got to experience and look and feel, sense. Sense is the right word because it's sort of an intangible sense. It's the sense of sensing, sensory perception of that strand, that tiny thread or that tiny strand that's air-like, and you get something and you get that information. And so as you're doing that, you may find that you're more gifted than you know.
Yeah.
And that's been my experience at working with people, and I've had to get out of my own way so often.
That's interesting.
So often,
So
often. I mean, it could be next week. I mean, it may have been 6 months ago that I would be doing something else, and I would have to settle myself down to read for somebody. And I'd say, how am I ever going to get, centered enough to, or I would be going up to speak in front of a group. And oftentimes I would say, how am I ever going to be, in a great flowing spiritual energy to be able, and I had no idea how, because I really wasn't feeling it in that moment. And as soon as it was time, they turn on the switch and they start coming through, and all of a sudden, and so I've learned to question it less. I've learned to question it much less than before. So, is that helpful in relation
oh yeah,
to
I
what
think
you're
that's
asking me to
great. Because because people like you, the teachers like you, and others, we channel that information, and we have our own information, but we're also conduits to the bigger pool there. And and when you say channeling and stuff like that, people go, "Ooh, what's that?" The thing that most people understand nowadays, I hear a lot of people go, "I'm an empath. I feel things,
Right.
but I don't know what to do with it. But I feel it. But that's my shtick." And I think for me, I was always raised to think I was purposely told, you're stupid, you're ugly, blah blah blah, but you're stupid. And what I realized, the more that you do this, first of all, nobody's really stupid.
Right.
But you just, when you open up your consciousness, the intelligence that you bring forth, bring up, bring through, bring from, is so incredible. Actually, somebody was making fun of me yesterday, going, because I am a constant stream of creativity. I have ideas, and they're not bad ideas. And they kind of make fun of me because I'm always doing something. But that's because of the Akashic. That is because of not just, and being psychic doesn't necessarily mean you're accessing that to the fullest.
That's true.
And
that's true. The creativity.
Go ahead.
The creativity is overlapping. So as you're saying, you are hugely creative because of that Akashic stream that's coming through. The imagination and the intuition are overlapping. And this is something that I found in the study, in direct communion or contact with them and channeling the information through. I found that the imagination and the intuition were absolutely overlapping at some point. Where one stops, the other has already begun.
Yeah.
In either way that you're going with it. So if someone is someone was trying to create progress in their life, and they were tuned in to deep spiritual studies, and I would say to that person that asking the psychic question, this goes back into psychic awareness, which is part of the study, or the practices of readying yourself to access the records, asking for guidance and being open and asking and looking ahead, opening and asking for that message is literally no different than creating it just by stepping out the door and doing something. As my mom used to say, go do something, even if it's wrong.
Yeah.
But actually, not to do something wrong, but just to do something, to make an action and create. Make an action and create. Because both are the same the same potential are in your field of what you want.
Yeah.
The same potentials are in your field of what you want, whether you ask somebody and are directed to it that way, or whether you create it. And so many people have a challenge between those two things. You say, well, start to affirm and create it and visualize it. And they're saying, yeah, but how's it going to happen?
Yeah.
You know, how is this going to tell me, give me something to go on here. So, and I will, you know, but oftentimes I'll try to get them to shift as a teacher, you know, without giving them, because if I hear the question and keep coming over and over and over, then I know that there's a weak spot there. So, and I try to explain that the imagination and the intuition are overlapping.
Yeah.
So the questioning is a lower expression of wanting to engage the intuition.
Yeah.
The questioning. And the imagining is the starting point for taking action and creating. And they're literally the same thing. And if we shined a light, if we shined a light on your fields or my fields or anyone's fields, we could see that.
Yeah.
If we took a spotlight from God and shined it on the fields and opened that person up, they would never question it again, because they could see that the intuition and the imagination are one and the same.
Yeah. And the key to a lot of it is being brave enough to trust yourself, to open up.
I agree, yeah.
But that's huge. But that's really huge. Hard.
Because I think we are ingrained to be a little afraid to be ourselves, or to be something that's outside of the box, because it's dangerous in a way, or not dangerous, but it's just something that it's like going into the unknown. But it's not the unknown. It really isn't the unknown. It's all there. But being brave enough to just say, "All right, I'm ready. Let's do this," and to trust yourself and to trust that you can handle that. And and so many people that come to me for readings and stuff, you know, they're all scared.
Yes.
And that's something I used to be scared. And that's a heavy thing to wake up all the time, being afraid to do something because you're scared of it. And your life you're not living your life if you're worried about what someone's going to think, or you're worried about...
Not the way you're supposed to, for sure.
No. And because what you're supposed to be doing, no one else can do that. And no one else should be able to tell you not to do it. But we stop ourselves a lot.
We have to take a break.
Well, we'll be back.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
This is so great.
Are you having a good time, Bill?
Yeah, this is good. I will go ahead and stay with you for the rest of the next segment.
Okay.
Cool beans.
Okay.
Well, let's do this break and we'll rock that on through. We'll be right... Yes. We will be right back, and y'all come back too. I know you don't want to miss any of this.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello, I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Welcome back for the final segment of Universal Truths with Kat and Mark, and our guest tonight, Bill Foss. And if you have missed the beginning of this, no worries. No worries at all. We are going to be in the archives on iHeart, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, you name it. Where you get your streaming, we're there. So, Bill, I am so glad you're here. Mark, I am so thankful for you. This has been exactly what was needed. And if it's that for me, then I'm sure it's been for a lot of other people too.
Well, it's I feel very blessed to be able to come on here, and this was meant for Bill to come to us, for this. Mm-hmm. I think
it's been very interesting so far. Thanks for having me on your show.
Now we can start the so far. Let's find something weird to talk about. I was going to say, now, application of the Akashic. Yeah. I want to share a little experience I had.
Oh, please
do.
Because
I work in a metaphysical store, so you get a lot of you wouldn't believe what comes off the street sometimes. Very interesting stuff. And this lady came to me about a month ago, and her daughter had been missing 3 months. And the police are, have posters out looking for her. Not a word. And she thought, oh, she's dead. She's in a ditch somewhere, So using the Akashic techniques that I use, I looked. I got her to bring me something of the girls, because everything it's like an energy trail. So, if it's out there, it's got a trail to it. I took the picture of her, and I looked at it and I said, no, she's not dead. She's just with a boyfriend that's in a bad way. She's just hiding. So I said, here's what I'll do. So I did a little protective thing to separate her energy and protect it from the things around her. Then I projected myself to her energy field, to her aura, which your aura and your body, you have a complete electromagnetic copy, plasma of your body, of your spirit, Yeah. And so I went to it. I put my hand on each side of the sides of her electrical form, and I said, call your mother. Call your mother. And I said, when we finished, I said, now, because Kat knows I can project. I'm very good at astrally projecting and remote viewing. I'm very weird with it. But I told the mother, I said, within a week to 2 weeks, if it works, she'll call you. 6 days later, she came back, and I have the proof for it. And she came back and said she called me, kind of against her will, but she called me, and I've seen her. She's alive. She's okay. We still have problems, but she was just hiding. And so, so at the store, we were like, that was kind of an interesting day. But you begin with the Akashic, you begin to really understand what your spirit is. And it's like, that you can project yourself. You're not just trapped inside your body. And you're an electrical being. And so I do things like this where, it's one thing to have psychic glimpses, but then it's another one to be, to understand it and how to use it as a tool. So, for other people, it might, they go, I think maybe they think, so they won't think just because you're psychic, you're able to do this. I think the Akashic is really something that you need to learn a good technique. You need to learn, it's like build a muscle, learn how to do it, learn how to meditate, and then you can access your personal Akashic, and then you can access the bigger Akashic. But everything has a mechanism. And
absolutely.
And one of the big things in the Akashic I'm going to talk to you about, or let you talk about, is the Eye of Horus. Because when I had my first experience with it, can you hear me? On my phone, can you hear me? Okay. The Eye of Horus. The first experience I had, I didn't know I was supposed to see this rock with an eye carved in it that lit up and opened up. That's the pineal gland. And that is one of our mechanisms to accessing all of it. And the Eye of Horus itself, the design, is kind of a map. If you cut the pineal gland in half, you see the Egyptian eye thing in the fold. So, it's actually in the organ. But when you look at the drawing of it, the little teardrop thing that comes out of the eye, that represents the pituitary gland. At the top of the eye is the hypothalamus. And then the little curlicue that goes down, that is showing, once you access the third eye, that little curlicue is saying, that goes down into the cerebellum, the older part of the brain, which has all of anyone who's put any of their DNA into our pool, it's in there. We have their eye color, their hair color, and their memory. And it's, so the little Eye of Horus is really kind of a map to show how they accessed that information. And if you've ever seen the old, the skulls where people elongated their skulls, it's because they knew the cerebellum was the psychic part, so they would push the cerebellum to the top of the head so that they would be more psychic. So I want to talk to you about the Eye of Horus and the Egyptian imagery that goes along with it sometimes.
Yes, interesting. It's all very interesting. And Egypt was formed out of the survivors of Atlantis.
Yes.
The original tribes of Egypt were literally just fleeing for their lives and they wound up in the desert, close to a water source, and they had to start living differently than they did in Atlantis. They had help from more than one alien group. that was coming down and balancing the energies, much like you were talking about earlier that they're doing with Mars. They were doing it with the Earth during that great cataclysmic shift, balancing the poles and resetting the minefields of humanity so that we could think and speak again. And working with the priests through and they had records. They had records and they had libraries deep within the earth, some of which have not even been accessed yet. So the pineal gland is a transceiver. Okay. So the pineal gland is, from my perspective, and everything you were saying, Mark, was right on. It is a transceiver. It sends and receives energy at broadcast, and it works in unison with the thalamus, which is sitting under the front of the brain, right behind the third eye, projecting energy out. Now, the interesting thing that the Egyptians had was they had a syllable in their language, and that syllable was art, A-R-T.
Yeah.
And that symbol, or that symbolic symbol, referred to the upper openings of the body. Now, isn't that interesting that all the way since ancient times we have called art. Perception of creativity, perception of creating art through the upper openings of the body. So when we go out to a gallery, we don't think of it in that way. We don't go out to the gallery and say, "Hey, well, thank you. I just thought I'd stop by and perceive your art through the upper openings of my body." I mean, but that's literally the way that it translated all the way back from ancient times. Art, A-R-T, upper openings of the body. Yes.
Okay.
And they would use the senses to travel. They would use the senses and the upper openings of the body to travel into the afterlife and into the Akashic Records.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So amazing. So then a transceiver sending and receiving information. So the eyes, the optical eyes are as engaged in sending and receiving information because they drive the third eye and the pineal gland. So you actually have 4 transceivers in your head. Now, you have more than that. You also have the clairaudience. You have the inner ear, which is connected to the vagus nerve, which is connected and is revered as the subconscious in the body, the vagus nerve. Now, we know from studies that the subconscious is connected to the mind of God, connected to the universe. Many people confuse subconscious with superconscious, but the subconscious is how we manifest through feeling, and the ego, the mind, the fields, the guides, the DNA are all connected in through the body, and the vagus nerve is connecting up through the brain, down through the gut, and manifesting. So it's also connected into the Akashic Records. This is the body's deep connection into the Akashic Records.
Wow.
So so when I'm teaching people to access the records, often we will travel up through the senses into the records. And there's many other ways. To access, but I'll teach people in the ancient traditional way, which was to access through the senses. And that's all in the book. Or in the books.
It's in the book, man.
which, by the way, is available on Amazon, and I'm sure at billfoss.net.
Yes, ma'am.
And the billfoss.net actually has the complete 3-volume study set.
Wow.
Yeah,
So,
that's the new series. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know we're coming close to the end of the show, and I tell you what, Bill, I couldn't have enjoyed this more. So I'm so glad that you came on.
I am too. I'm glad we got a chance to talk with you.
Thank you all. Yeah, absolutely. I've enjoyed talking to both of you all too, and thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
And we appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Very much so.
I think it was time well spent.
So for everyone listening, thank you so much. You know, we do these shows for you. And I hope that you enjoyed this as much as Mark and I did. You thought it rocked too, didn't you, Mark?
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
So be sure and join us next week. You know, I'll be back on Sunday night with Fate Mag Radio. So you be sure and come back too. And we've got Denise Pridemore with the Paranormal Pride Monday. I'll be back with Paranormal Experience with Kat Hobson on Wednesday. And Thursday we'll be back.
We'll be back.
And then Friday will be Shelley Robertson with her Ghost Talk Radio, and she'll be with us tomorrow night too. So be sure and tune in. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you
all. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful.
Yes, it was. Good night, everybody.
Good
night.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.